My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is August 15, 2025. It is 9:27 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top U.S. news highlights for the past 24 hours. Washington, D.C. is taking the federal government to court. The D.C. Attorney General filed a federal lawsuit today challenging Attorney General Pam Bondi's appointment of DEA head Terry Cole as Emergency Commissioner over the Metropolitan Police Department. The suit argues the move violates the 1973 Home Rule Act, which grants the district a degree of self-governance. New details are emerging about U.S. energy strategy in the Arctic ahead of this week's Alaska summit. Administration officials reportedly explored the possibility of using Russian nuclear-powered icebreakers to support liquefied natural gas and other infrastructure projects in Alaska, with the aim of expanding exports to Asian markets. President Trump and Vladimir Putin wrapped up their Alaska summit without a ceasefire deal in Ukraine. Trump called the talks very productive, while Putin described the meeting as a step towards restoring cooperation in energy trade and security. Markets took the outcome in stride. Stocks stayed steady, with analysts saying geopolitical tensions are largely priced in and that the summit could lay groundwork for future diplomacy. In domestic policy, the Make America Healthy Again Commission, chaired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., released a draft report on pesticide use. The panel stopped short of calling for tighter restrictions, instead recommending public education and more precise application methods. By the way, Roundup will sterilize the ground. I am a career landscaper, and in college, while attending school for landscape architecture, I wrote an entire paper about the fact that prolonged pesticide use will sterilize the soil. Well, mainly Roundup. But yeah, shit's not good for you. For the stock market today, the S&P 500 dipped at 0.3%, closing at $6,449.80. Slightly below its recent record. The Nasdaq Composite slid 0.4% to 21,622.98, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average edged up 0.1% to 44,946.12, narrowly missing a record close. Real quick. So the pesticides have been causing cancer. That's the big deal surrounding that. I don't think spreading either of those things is good for people or the environment. Roundup will sterilize the ground. Pesticides are causing cancer, and that's why there's people suing over it. There's been a lot in the news in regards to the use of Roundup. Back to the markets. Weekly performance, despite today's pullback, this week marked the fourth straight weekly gain for the S&P 500. The Dow led with a 1.7% climb. We're just going to take a real quick look at the visuals here for those who are visual learners. This is the S&P 500. And this is the Dow Jones. And this is Invesco QQQ, and that is how the markets closed today. Top movers, United Health Group soared nearly 12% after news that Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway purchased over 5 million shares, providing an early boost to the Dow and offsetting a broader sector weakness. Essentially, what that means is that there was market manipulation. Warren Buffett is in Donald Trump's pockets, and he has been manipulating the stock market through his entire career in a way that is detrimental for both the planet and the people. He is touted to be a hero when, if you really look at what's going on there, he is strongly invested in all of the destructive companies that have been shitting on human rights. United Health Group, is that the company that the CEO got shot? It is. Brian Thompson is the CEO that was shot. And his company was supposed to be the primary beneficiary from Project 2025. So what we have here in the stock market, as far as the top movers being United Health Group and Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, would be stock market manipulation. U.S. trade and economic highlights, tariffs on steel and semiconductor imports coming soon. Trump announced plans to impose new tariffs on steel and semiconductor chip imports. In the coming weeks, the administration intends to start with low rates and encourage domestic production, with the possibility of increasing those levels over time. Fed officials signal upcoming rate cuts. San Francisco Fed Chief Mary Daly expressed support for initiating interest rate reductions as early as next month, citing a softening labor market and slowing economy, though inflation remains elevated. Similarly, Chicago Fed President Austin Goolsbee said he's open to rate cuts in September or later, contingent on inflation trends and incoming economic data. Inflation pressure grows, producer prices jump. U.S. producer price inflation surged in July, up 0.9%, the highest gain in 3 years, complicating expectations for near-term rate cuts. Manufacturing production stalls. Manufacturing output remained flat in July, narrowly missing analyst expectations amid tariff-driven costs and industrial sector disruptions. Corporate bond market poised for activity despite subdued rate cut expectations. U.S. corporate bond insurance is expected to remain strong in September, possibly approaching levels seen last in 2022, driven by underlying corporate financing needs. Equity fund inflows reach 6-week peak. Global equity funds attracted $19.3 billion in inflows during the week ending August 13th, with $8.8 billion flowing into U.S. equities, spurred by soft U.S. inflation data and a tariff truce with China. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones may be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here is the upcoming hazardous weather outlook for the next few days. West, Southwest, and Great Plains. Intense heat continues through the weekend, with highs forecasted at 101 degrees Fahrenheit on Saturday. This raises high risk for heat-related illnesses and potential for increased wildfire ignition. Midwest and central U.S. hazards include the heat wave persists, with similar high temperatures in the upper 90s to 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Humid conditions may worsen heat stress. Vulnerable populations, elderly, young, and children should be monitored closely and limit exposure to the heat. Hot and humid conditions prevail in the southeast and Gulf Coast. While no immediate storms are forecast, the oppressive heat may pose health risks, especially with activity. Stay hydrated and take frequent cooling breaks if outside. Northeast and Mid-Atlantic hazards, another hot day ahead. Scattered afternoon thunderstorms may pop up, especially Sunday, introducing brief localized risk. Keep an eye on updated forecasts. Storms may bring lightning and sudden downpours. Coastal marine areas. Tropical storm Erin has strengthened to a Category 1 hurricane. Though it's still well offshore, its outer bands may eventually impact Atlantic weather. Right now, Erin poses no immediate U.S. coastal threat, but it's worth monitoring for potential changes. International news highlights. The Trump-Putin summit concludes without a ceasefire agreement. Accurate and current. Reuters confirms that the Alaska summit resulted with no ceasefire deal. President Trump described the meeting as very productive, while Putin extended cautious hope about advancing dialogue through concrete outcomes, though concrete outcomes remain elusive. And based on what I'm seeing, as I mentioned earlier, it kind of looks to me like, considering that Putin considers Alaska to be part of Russia and tells people that Alaska is part of Russia and is now somehow invading Alaska with Russian oil or energy or whatever the hell. I mean, the talks are about energy. But, Donald Trump has been pressuring India to stop buying Russian oil. So why are we making an economic deal in Alaska to start taking over infrastructure with Russian assets? I'm just wondering. I find that very strange. I personally see it as a push forward to Putin moving into Alaska in some way that I feel personally is not good. Global plastic pollution treaty talks collapse. Multiple reputable sources confirm that discussions in Geneva failed to yield a binding treaty on plastic pollution. Disagreements over whether to cap plastic production or focus on recycling were central. The Washington Post and AP both report the failure under today's timeline. Israeli minister sparks outrage with prison cell confrontation. The Guardian reports that Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir taunted Palestinian leader Marwan Barghouti in a video taken inside a prison cell. The incident provoked international condemnation, described by Palestinian leaders as state terrorism. Astana to host global library and informative Congress. The Economic Times confirms that Astana will host the largest global conference for library and information professionals, the 89th World Library and Information Congress, scheduled from August 18th to the 22nd under the theme Connecting Knowledge, Building the Future. As reported by the Economic Times, investor reactions to summit highlight stability. Reuters reports that markets showed muted responses to the Trump-Putin summit. Analysts noted that geopolitical tensions appear largely priced in, and the lack of new sanctions was perceived as positive for the markets. That concludes today's news report. It is August 15, 2025 at 9:43 p.m. And this is the last 24 hours in the news.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, it's too bad. One was in 2026, and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election, and now we won, so I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So, Johnny, thank you for the World Cup, and everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey, guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.